So today we're going to show you everything that is in the box when you buy a Gorilla Grow tent so that you can be familiar with the parts that you're seeing when you do your unboxing. First of all, when you cut into the Gorilla Grow tent boxes, please be careful. The contents are right against the top of the box. I do suggest using a box cutter such as this. And what I like to do is only push the blade out just a little bit so that I can't go any deeper than the knife will allow. The box does come with an internal cardboard strip that helps protect any damage to the tent, but again, please ensure that you don't go too deep with the knife that you use so that you don't cut into your brand new tent. All right, so when you first open the box, the first thing you're going to see is the actual skin of the grow tent. And it comes in this handy little carry bag. And when you open up this bag, you're going to see 4 different parts. The first one is going to be the roof of the tent. And it has kind of a little bit of a shinier, silkier texture to it. You're going to find the extension kit, which is going to be a fairly small piece of material with zippers on both sides. You'll find the spill pool. And then you'll find the main body of the tent, which is going to be the largest piece of fabric. And that is going to be both the floor and the walls of your tent. You'll also find these straps, which are for hanging any kind of carbon filter or any other equipment to the top of the tent. You'll find an instruction manual. And the next thing you'll find in the box is the pole kit for the tent. This is a Gorilla 5x5 that we're unboxing right now. So you're going to find 8 corner pieces, 4 for the bottom, 4 for the top. You're going to find B poles, C poles, and C+ poles. These poles are going to make up the vertical members of the frame. And please keep in mind when you unpack your tent that the C poles are stuck together. There are 4. It looks like there's only 2 here, but there are 4. 2 of them are stuck to the other 2. So please take notice of that. We have the A poles. The A poles are going to make up the horizontal portion of the frame on the bottom and the top of the tent. A poles again. And then you're going to have your cross member pieces, the E's and the F's. As you will notice on these poles, one has a deeper hook than the other. The deeper hook poles will always sit on the bottom of the crossing, and the poles with the shallow hook will always sit at the top. There's a couple other pieces that I want to mention that are in other tents. If you have a 5x9 tent or higher, you will have these, which we call 4-way pieces. And if you have any tent that is 8x8 or higher, you will also have these, which we call 5-ways. I also wanted to show, if you do have a shorty, your C+ poles are going to be quite a bit shorter than the ones that come with all the other Gorilla Grow tents, as the extension kits and the shorties are only 9 inches rather than the 12 inches that the light line and regular line both have. We also have this handy flyer for our other brands. You can get some great deals on other equipment. Lotus Nutrients, Kind LED grow lights, the best pair of equipment for this tent. And that's everything that you should find inside of your Gorilla Grow tent box. So now that we have all of our parts unpacked from our box, it's time to set this tent up. So anything 5x5 and down is a very easy tent to set up with just one person. I've set plenty of 10x20 tents up by myself, but any tent that is 4x8 or higher, it is good to have a friend to help you. It's just going to make the process easier, but again, you can do any of our tents with just one person. So first of all, what we need to do is clear a space. And I know not everyone is going to have as big of a space as I have here, but the rules of setting it up and the principles are all the same. So what I like to do is start by organizing your poles off to the side. We're going to put the spill pool off to the side because that's the last thing we're going to install. We're going to put the extension kit off to the side and the roof off to the side. So the next thing we want to do is grab the main body of the tent. This is both the floor and the walls of the tent. And the front of the tent can be identified by these two windows, and you will also see the vertical zipper running down the entire length of this piece of fabric. This is the front of the tent that needs to be orientated wherever you want the opening of the tent to face once it's all set up. We're going to start by unzipping all of the zippers around this piece of fabric. So first undo the vertical one. These next ones are the horizontal zippers that create the bottom of the tent. And they will end before they get to the back side of the tent. What I do is I open up the walls and I fold them in once. I'm going to unzip the other side. Same thing, it'll stop before it gets to the back of the tent. Fold those in. And so, like I said, in this nice big space, I've got plenty of room to push all of these doors and back wall. If you're in a tighter space, you're just going to kind of push it up against the wall so that you can get the main floor of the tent, which is this piece that sticks off, to be flat on the floor. So again, this is the bottom of the tent that we're going to be building the pole set in. Next, we'll take our first set of 4 corners. Now you'll notice on these corners that 2 of the arms coming off only have 1 hole, and 1 of the arms has 2 holes. The arm that has 2 holes will always be orientated up or straight down, and the 2 arms with 1 hole will be facing the A poles that will make up the horizontal framing. So again, we have the A poles here, and these always make up the horizontal framing. If you have a tent that is dimensionally equal, 3 by 3, 4 by 4, 5 by 5, 8 by 8, you will have only A poles. If you have any tents that are different dimensionally, meaning side to side, 2 by 4, 4 by 8, 5 by 9, you will have a combination of A poles and D poles, since one of the poles going the horizontal way is actually shorter than the other. So again, I am going to clip these poles in with the corner that has 2 holes in it, or the arm that has 2 holes in it, facing up. And I'm going to repeat that throughout the square of the floor. All right, so now we have the frame that's going to make up the floor of the tent. Again, all of the arms that have 2 holes are all at this point facing up. Now what we're going to do is find the back corner of this skin, and we're just going to tuck the frame towards the back and then walk up to the front of the tent. And very carefully, we are going to set these corners into this piece of fabric, making sure that we're not putting too much pressure on this seam right here. So when you first get your tent, the skin will be pretty tight as far as setting the tent up and zipping it. But again, this was done on purpose to allow for some of that relaxation of the fabric over time. So what I do is I tend to give this piece of fabric a good pull and just keep 2 fingers there to make sure that this corner doesn't scrape down the side and rip that stitching. Now that our frame is in the floor, we're going to build the vertical poles with the B, C, and C+. So B's, C's, and C+ poles. Please keep in mind that these are 2 C+ poles put together. So there's actually 4 poles in what appears to be a 2-pole set. Now what I like to do is go through and put all the B poles in first. It does not matter which hole the pin clips into on the B poles, as the corners that are going to go above are going to have the same 2 holes, so they can be on either side. Again, so you guys can see, the clipping mechanism on these poles is this silver tab. You're going to depress it, line it up, and it's going to click in, which locks the poles together. All right, B poles are in place. Now we're going to do our C's. So the standard height of our regular gorilla tents without the extension kit in is 6'11", and with the extension kit in is 7'11". If you're not going to use the extension kit, now would be the time that you would stop going up vertically with the poles, and you would not add the C+. If you're going to use the extension kit, now would be the time to add the C+ poles. At this point, I always like to put the corners on. If you don't have the extension poles in, it's still a pretty easy reach for most people. But once you get this extra foot on, it starts to become a little bit of a stretch. So I like to put these on now. And typically what I'll do is hold the pole, see where the silver tab is going to line up, and then I know which of these two holes to line the corner in. You obviously want that corner to be facing the two sides of the tent that you're still making. All right, now that we have all of our vertical poles, the B, the C, and the C+, and the corners, now we're going to put on the final A poles. This is where you're going to want to grab a step stool to help aid in reaching up high enough to get these A poles in. These are the final horizontal poles before we actually put these roof supports, the E's and the F's in. All right, so now we have our basic frame made for the tent. The next step is something that you can do now, or you can do after the skin is on. I've seen people prefer it both ways. If you do this step now, you do need to be slightly cautious that you don't dislodge the E or F poles when you're putting the roof on, but this is where I prefer to do this step. So as you're going to see with your E and F poles, you're going to have a difference in hook depth. The F pole is going to have a deeper hook, and the E pole is going to have a shallower hook. And I'll show you why that is in just a second. So first, I'm going to put the deep hook pole up. And these are going to be the poles below the E poles that have the shallower hook. And this is a critical part of hanging gear from the top of your Gorilla Grow tent. The strength of the Gorilla Grow tent comes from the two supporting poles, not a single pole. So whenever you're hanging anything that has significant weight to it, you want to make sure that you're getting the E pole, which is on top, that is supported by not only its own strength, but also the strength of the F pole as a cross brace. So it is very important to get these cross braces. That is how you support the 300 pounds that we claim you can support on a Gorilla Grow tent. When setting up larger tents, putting these cross braces in first actually help, especially if you're by yourself, to hold the roof up while you put it on. Again, you do have to be a little bit cautious that you don't dislodge one of these poles during that process. You can put these poles in after you put the roof on, but it is a little bit tight, so I do suggest doing it at this time. All right, so now what we're gonna do is install the roof on this frame. Just as we did when we were orientating the body of the tent, we're gonna wanna find the front of the roof, which you'll clearly see has the Gorilla Grow Tent logo on it. And the Gorilla Grow Tent logo will end up on the looker's right side of this tent if you were facing it. So the easiest way to do this is to keep most of it folded up as it is here. Make sure that you are still in line. And then cutting it close on our ceiling. And then just put the majority of the roof up on the poles. As you can see, the E and F poles are supporting it a little bit. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna slowly walk this side over to the other side as we kind of unroll the roof. Again, this is the most challenging part if you're going to set this up by yourself. If you're setting it up with a friend, it actually becomes quite a bit easier because one of you can hold this side while the other one unrolls. Then what you're going to do as you get this side unrolled in this direction is you're going to seat this corner, but not all the way down. Maybe seat it down halfway, and I'll tell you why in a sec. So we're going to find this corner, same thing. We're only going to seat it down about halfway. At this point, I usually double check, make sure that my E and F poles are still in place and not going to fall down. As you can see, our Gorilla logo ended up right where we wanted it. And now, why we only seat these corners partially down, in fact, this one needs to come up a little bit, is if you seat all of those corners down and it stretches the roof out, what's going to happen is the last corner that you try to seat is going to be very tight. The ceiling is a fairly deep piece of fabric, and if all of these corners are fully seated and you try to go to the last one, what it creates is a very tight fit. And we have a lot of customers who at this step will try to force the fabric down over that corner, and you can rip it. The corners, aren't sharp, but they have a blunt of enough point where they can actually tear the fabric. And so this is a very important step. And so right now I can feel that this side is pretty tight. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back over here. I'm just going to pull the fabric up a little bit. And now this side is much looser now that I did that. And then you can go around and just snug all the corners down onto the frame. Just like that. So at this point, if you didn't have the C+ poles in, you would simply start the process of attaching the body to the roof. But because we have the C+ poles in, we're going to show you guys how to put the extension kit in first, and then we'll attach the body. So on your extension kit, you're going to notice a few things that are different about one side than the other, mainly being there is a flap that exists underneath the zipper on one side. This flap is always going to be facing down. So when you install this onto your tent, you want to make sure that this is always facing down. And this is one long continuous piece of fabric that splits, and this is going to be the back of the tent. So the easiest way to do this is to put the extension kit off to one side. On the back, you are going to see a corresponding zipper. One will have the zipper head attached to the roof, and the other side will have the zipper head attached to the actual extension kit. Again, you can see I have this flap facing downward. When you put zippers on, please make sure that you seat the zipper all the way into the zipper stop at the end. If you do not do this, the zipper will not engage and will not zip correctly. So once you have this zipper started, what you're going to do is you're going to walk it all the way around the tent. Once you get to here, you need to engage the other half of the zipper. Again, on this side, the zipper head is on the actual extension kit. And now your extension kit is fully zipped in. All right, so we flip the tent around so you can see what's going on back here. When you have the extension kit fully zipped up, there are going to be a number of flaps. This one is going to come down first. You're going to have these two come together, and then you'll see a long piece of Velcro that's going to connect here and a small piece of Velcro that's going to connect here. So that'll make a nice light-proof layer. So the next part is connecting the main body to the roof. And this is a part that does take a little bit of strength. You know, our tents are the thickest on the market, and thus the fabric can get a little bit heavy. But to help with this, we have included 2 Velcro tabs here and 2 Velcro pieces on the body to help hold the tent up while you start the zippers. They exist both on the extension kit and on the roof, so regardless of if you have the extension kit in or not, these are here to help you. So you're just going to take that, put it on that Velcro tab, take this other one and do the same. And I always try to pull up as hard as I can to get these zippers as close as possible. And sometimes that means doing it a few times. Then I'll take the doors, swing them around so that they're not also weighing down this back piece. So just like on the extension kit, you're going to find a zipper head that is on the upper part of the roof and then one that is actually on the main body. And so this is critical to get the zipper all the way seated on these 2 pieces. And again, these are tough tents. They're built to last, but they are tight when you first get them. So it is going to be a little bit tough to get that zipper head in when you first get this tent. Just unzip that, unvelcro that, and it zips inside. Now we've got one side on. Now we're going to zip the last one. Again, you're going to make sure that this zipper head is all the way seated before you start to zip. And then unvelcro and start to zip. One of the things that I want to mention as you're zipping is coming around these corners. again, is going to be very tight when you first get this tent. We've designed it that way. We've designed it to be nice and tight on the frame at first because that fabric is going to relax over time. And so when you come around these corners, be very careful. If it's having a hard time making it around the corner, giving it a little outward pressure before zipping around the corner helps out quite a bit. All right, we're back to the front of our tent now. I like to just take these zippers all the way through. And then we'll zip the bottom zippers. And we'll stop here at the pole so that we can open this tent back up and show you how to install the spill pool. All right, now that we have our tent fully put together, there's a few other light blocking flaps inside the tent that you can see back here. Simple Velcro closures. There's another one up here. And then any of the ducting ports that you're not using can be cinched up at this time. And then any one that you are using, obviously, you'll be putting your ducting or power cords through and then cinching them up once they're in. Last component, last piece of the tent that we're going to install is the spill pool. Spill pool is fairly straightforward. On each corner, you'll find a Velcro tab. This is going to go around the vertical poles of the tent. And one thing that I want to mention here is when you do build a tent that is an 8x8 or bigger, you are going to need to install the spill pool before you make the frame. And you'll notice if you have those size tents that the spill pool will have a hole that's in the middle of it for the center pole that's in a tent, such as an 8x8, 9x9, 8x16, 10x20. And so building the poles on the floor, installing the spill pool, then installing the vertical poles is the way you build those tents. So we're just going to take this Velcro tab. We're going to go around the vertical poles and latch it back on itself. And there you have it. Fully built Gorilla Grow Tent.